Greetings, you're watching Breaking News on the Creative Society TV. Humanity is facing global climate change, our common external enemy. The whole truth about the growing danger of climate catastrophes will be announced on May 7, 2022 at the International Online Forum, Global Crisis, We Are People, We Want to Live. Next, in this episode, watch what is happening to the climate now. On February 23, 2022, cyclone Imnati struck the southeastern part of Madagascar. This is the fourth tropical storm in the months in the region. More than 44,000 people have been evacuated. Unfortunately, casualties have been reported. The cyclone brought heavy rains and flooding, downed trees, destroyed many homes and roads. The topic of climate disaster will be continued by the breaking news reporters from Indonesia and Australia.
Hello, this is the breaking news reporter from Indonesia. On February 25, 2022, there was a strong earthquake of magnitude 6.2 in Indonesia. The seismic event was recorded in the north of the islands of Sumatra at a depth of about 12 kilometers. Pasaman and West Pasaman counties were the most affected. Unfortunately, casualties and injured people have been recorded. Hundreds of homes were damaged and destroyed. The main shock was followed by 15 aftershock. The earthquake was also felt in Malaysia. The National Disaster Management Agency, or BNPB, recorded 11 people died, 4 were missing, and 13,000 residents were displaced due to the earthquake.
At the end of February 2022, North Sumatra, Indonesia was hit by heavy rains. Homes, industrial buildings, and public facilities were flooded in the city Medan. On February 27, the island of Java was also hit by heavy rain as well as hurricane winds. Unfortunately, there were casualties. More than 25,000 people were affected and over 4,000 homes were damaged. Such districts as Banten, Banjar, and Brebes were especially affected. On February 25, heavy rains began to fall in Malaysia, resulting in flooding. In 48 hours in the city of Kuala Terengganu in Terengganu, more than 400 millimeters of rain fell. This amount exceeded the month norm by more than 2.5 times. About 20,000 people moved to evacuation centers. Earlier, since February 18, the southwestern part of China had been spread by abnormal frosts. More than 58,000 local residents of Guangxi-Zhuang Autonomous Region were affected by the extreme cold. Frosty weather damaged about 1,500 hectares of crops. Due to numerous power line failures, thousands of homes were left without electricity.
Greetings, this is a breaking news reporter from Australia. After a week of heavy rains, on February 26-27, 2022, the Australian state of Queensland was hit by widespread flooding. Evacuation centers admitted more than 1,000 victims. Unfortunately, there are fatalities. The situation was exacerbated by landslides and fallen trees. In some parts of the state, rainfall exceeded records for decades. For example, 70 millimeters fell in just 1 hour on Bribie Island, and up to 300 millimeters in less than 6 hours on the Sunshine Coast. On the Isle of Bribie, because of the flooding of the same name river, more than 1,400 homes and enterprises were flooded. As a result, dozens of thousands of people were left without electricity. In Gympie, the worst flooding of the century occurred. The water in the Mary River rose to nearly 23 meters, reaching its highest level since 1893. According to Mayor Glenn Hartwig, the city faced a hell of plenty of water. In some places, it was from floor to ceiling and above the roof.
No one expected such a merciless downpour, said the Queensland Prime Minister. The cyclone, which local meteorologists called a 1,000 millimeter rain bomb, continued towards the state of New South Wales. The communities of Ballina and Lismore were the hardest hit. On March 1st, the evacuation of residents in several areas of the state capital, the city of Sydney, was announced. Meanwhile, merciless downpours hit Latin America. Watch next more about what happened in Bolivia.
Greetings, this is a breaking news reporter from Bolivia. On February 22, 2022, the departments of Tarija, Santa Cruz and Cochabamba in southeastern Bolivia were hit by heavy rains. Consequently, severe floods and river overflows began. As a result, dozens of people were killed. In Entre Rios municipality, torrents of water with mud and debris reaching up to 2 meters deep swept through the streets and destroyed homes, crops and livestock. 2,000 people were evacuated from the disaster area. Power and water infrastructures were damaged due to the floods. About 90% of the roads in the region were also damaged. Humanitarian aid was delivered to remote settlements by air.
On February 27th, a powerful hailstorm struck the province of Santa Fe in Argentina. The storm was accompanied by gale force winds, thunderstorms, and rain. Hailstones the size of tennis balls damaged roofs, windows, walls of the houses and cars. There is no reports of casualties. The topic of natural disasters in Argentina will be continued by the breaking news reporter.
Hello, this is a breaking news reporter from Argentina. Fires of such magnitude had not been recorded in 20 years in the province of Chubut, Puerto Madryn. Dead animals and 78,000 hectares affected in the first weeks of January 2022. On Sunday, February 13th, the fire in the area of San Martin Lake in Bariloche was reactivated, where more than 8,000 hectares of native forest were lost by fire. The fire continues to advance in a context of water crisis. A new fire started on Monday, February 14th, in Los Alerces National Park in northwestern Chubut. The province lost 80,000 hectares to fires in 2022 alone. On Tuesday, February 15th, a new fire broke out near Esquel, which affected more than 80 hectares and is uncontrollable due to wind and extreme drought. The Secretary of Forestry of Chubut informed that so far this year there have been 35 fire incidents in the jurisdiction of the Provincial Fire Management Service. In the province of Corrientes, the fire has devastated more than 550,000 hectares of countryside during the last few days. It is already estimated that at the moment it is 50 times the size of the city of Paris. And the fires continue to advance, burning 20,000 hectares per day. The situation is complicated, given the high temperatures, low humidity and drought that has been going on for several months. 12 airplanes, 3 helicopters, hydrant trucks, police and firefighters are working day and night. Thus, said the chief executive of Corrientes, we are in a chaotic moment that still cannot be controlled. From January to date, there have been 7,000 fire outbreaks, devastating native forests, cultivated forests and marshes. We really need extraordinary help to be able to get up from this hill, because this is something that has never happened to us before, lamented the head of Civil Defense Operations of Corrientes, Orlando Bertoni. He assured that the fires do not cease, and that the brigadiers are beginning to suffer fatigue and exhaustion due to the hard days of work. In 22 years as chief, I have not seen so many fires and such a prolonged drought.
Almost 900,000 hectares of vegetation have been destroyed by fire in Argentina as of February 28, 2022. The province of Corrientes, where the Estado del Ibera Reserve, the second largest wetland in the world, was hardest hit by the disaster. On March 1st, a powerful dust storm swept through the same region, as well as the neighboring province of Misiones. A huge cloud of smoke, ash and dust more than a kilometer high covered the cities. Visibility dropped to a few meters. Day turned into night. Then the natural phenomenon covered several municipalities in the south of Paraguay. Earlier, Colorado residents in the US were also affected by the most destructive wildfires in decades. Eyewitness Elizabeth Wimpy will tell us the story of the aftermath of this disaster.
My name is Elizabeth. I have been living in Boulder, Colorado for probably 2.5 years. Over the holidays, our community was pretty much wiped out from the Marshall Fire. I don't think that people were prepared. Unfortunately, 2 lives were lost, but yeah, total devastation for a lot of people. I have not seen anything like this before. It happened so fast. The winds that day were up to 100 miles per hour, barely escaping out of the fire. People driving through the park trying to get out because the traffic was so backed up because everybody was trying to get out at once. I have definitely been pretty naive, and in fact, I never thought about my home burning. Never. But it did. And it didn't happen to me. It happened to so many people around me. I think that that's what hurts the worst, is it's not just me that was affected. It was thousands of others that are just misplaced and seeking some normalcy. And we will get there for sure. As far as Colorado goes, it's incredible people from all around the world that I think are pitching in for us. They have local restaurants all around the community that families can come in and either pick up food to go to take home to their families, or if they want a night, to dine in, that they can have that as well, for free. And that might sound like it's not really a lot, but I think for a lot of us, it's a lot to not have to worry about what we're going to do for dinner or lunch. They had a disaster center set up for several weeks that offered several different resources. I can't speak for my whole community, but for someone who hasn't grown up in the community, I have felt very loved and supported through this whole journey. So I am grateful for that. I think it's extremely important for us to come together and to try to figure out what is actually going on in the world. And with the climate change, I think it would be extremely beneficial for human life. A lot of these people had their homes for 50 plus years, and they can't build a house like what they had in today's time for the money that they did back then. I think that there's a lot of people that truly have lost everything, and I don't know how they're financially going to recover from this. Let's come together to figure out climate change and what it's about and what it's doing. Please join us May 7th, 2022 for Global Crisis. We are the people and we want to live.
During a time of climate crisis, the consumer format of society makes life even harder for people whose homes are in trouble. An eyewitness from Kentucky, USA will tell us about the harsh reality after a series of tornadoes in December 2021.
My name is Kelly Dethridge. I am from the United States, from Bowling Green, Kentucky. And on December the 11th, I was in a national disaster, a tornado. That their storms were coming, but they weren't sure the severity of it. So I literally kept looking outside. My kids were terrified. They were screaming, they were scared. You could hear, like, the wind was so bad that the windows were just shaking. Right before the tornado hit, everything was so calm outside. No wind, no nothing. That's when the sky was bright on one side, but it was dark on the other. And then all of a sudden, you could hear from a far distance what sounded like a train. The time that we were watching the news station, the news anchor said, if you're in Hadley, Kentucky, take cover now. So that's why we had, all of a sudden the power went out, and I'm literally trying to look outside because we don't have a basement. So we had nowhere to go. You can see in the sky this dark funnel cloud. And I'm screaming at my kids, get down, get down, get down. All of a sudden, the pressure in my ears, I couldn't even hear. And all of a sudden, you could hear the windows pop out in my house. I didn't even know if we were going to make it. You could just, it felt like forever. It felt like it lasted forever. Just the house was shaking, things were falling, just like we were in an earthquake. And after the first round was over, we thought everything was done. So I go and I look outside, and you could just see the disaster from outside. Well, all of a sudden, it picks up again. You could see things just going around up in the air. So then the house starts shaking again. I have never experienced anything like this in my life. I have almost $30,000 in damage to my house. Well, the insurance company has agreed to pay $9,000 of that. What about all this money that was gave from the government to help us Kentuckians? Where's that money at? Because everybody that I know, none of them's got help. Nobody in the state of Kentucky has got help. There are people who are homeless with kids. There are families who don't even have a roof over their head. Friends of mine who don't even have homes now. They lost everything, their vehicles, their homes, their whole life. And the insurance companies are paying just what's owed for those people who are total loss. They're paying the mortgages off, but then those people have nothing to rebuild their lives. The only thing that they've been helped with is like covers, bottled waters, just small necessities like that. What about the help with fixing our homes? There was over $40 million gave to the state of Kentucky. Stars and country singers have donated to Kentucky, to the Red Cross, to United Way. But when you call these people for help, you gave the runaround. And still to today, I have cracks in my walls. I have my kids' room where every time that it rains, water's coming in down the drywall through the window. The governor and Jill Biden was here in Warren County. They came to survey the damages, the first lady. So I proceed to go over to that area. I need to talk to Andy Bashir, which is our governor. And I was threatened that if I did not leave and go back home, that I would be arrested. They're only going to help the people who they're going to be able to pick and choose a few different ones who they can get the photo ops with. Those are the people who get the help. And the only reason they get that help is so that they can put them on the news. They're not going to help everybody. There's like 5% of people out of 100% that have received any kind of help since the tornado. The other 95% of us don't know what we're going to do. I am a taxpayer, a law-abiding citizen, never been in trouble, pay my taxes faithfully, and I can't get any help. And it really hurts my heart as a Kentuckian that we are being done this way. It's really tough because I have kids. I have a child who has severe health issues. And I already, had those medical bills for my child. And to have to add on top of it all these expenses that now I have to do in order to fix my home, getting no help. And the government is just such a lie. The first week after this happened, I was with a search party looking for Nissa. She was a little girl that was friends with my daughter. I knew her family, and her whole family was killed in the tornado. All 7 of them. The kids, the grandmother, the mother, the father, they were all killed. And after the tornado, they found everybody but her. So for several days after this tornado happened, me and my kids went to search for her. We started at where she lived at, and we walked and moved things and moved debris. And the day after that this happened, we were still finding bodies, like finding people. And then when we found the little girl, her body was literally wrapped around a tree. And I'm like, it was one of the hardest things that a person would ever have to go through, is to literally, you're out searching for someone and you're begging, God, please let me find this person alive. But then you find them and they're wrapped around a tree. I remember New Year's Eve watching the news and them saying, another tornado's coming. And my kids were just terrified. They're like, no, mama, we don't want to go through this again, mama. No, mama, no, mama. And underneath my house, I don't have a basement, but I have a crawl space that is just really, really small. So when it came through on January the 1st, we were literally crawled underneath the house in a crawl space. It was very scary. And like I said, I'm 40 some years old, and never in my life have I ever experienced. My kids are like, Mama, our home is broken. How are we going to fix it? And as a mother, you have to look at your child and say, you don't worry about that. Mommy's got it. But I sit back and I say, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what to do. I know one family in particular, everything they have is gone, and they are having to sleep on couches and are homeless because they can't. Where they were getting a hotel room, they were providing that for the first 30 days. After that 30 days ended, they stopped providing that help for those families. For those people who feel like this may never happen to you, I was one of those people. I would see on the news tornadoes were happening in other states, and I would be like, my guard would be down, and I would be like, okay, it's never going to happen to me. Numerous times, never would I have ever thought that I would have went through what I went through that night. Not once, not twice, but 3 times within a matter of a month. You always turn on the news, the world news or the local news, and you see how there's all this help for us, all these millions of dollars, but we don't see it. So, and people are suffering. People are really going through it in Kentucky. Many people I know, Mayfield, Kentucky, many people that I know are going through a really tough time right now. And I want people to know all around the world, you are not exempt. You are not covered by some bubble that this can't happen to you, because it can at any time. At any time. And it's only getting worse. From what I have seen with the whole climate change situation, it's getting worse. Way worse. So, and the government doesn't care. They don't care. How many lives are lost? How many homes are lost? How many people are destroyed? They don't care. And that is my own personal opinion based on what I have went through here over the last month. It shows how much the government cares about us as United States American citizens. So, and that's how I feel. As us people, we need to come together. And if we can't come together and stop with all of the diversity and the hate and focusing on the wrong things, then we can't never make change. Change happens when more than one person sticks together. That's how change happens. To me, we should all want better for the generations to come. But it starts with us. It starts with us. And too many people right now are so worried about the me syndrome of being selfish and feeling entitled. It's very sad. I've never in my life seen so much division. I see more division in this world right now than I see love and unity. And until we get that love and that unity together, we can't get nothing done.
If you have witnessed a climate anomaly, send your video footage to climate@creativesociety.com. The sequences of the synchronized natural disasters were felt by the Europeans at the end of February 2022. Powerful storms struck several countries, one after another. Watch next for more details.
On February 18th, 19th, 2022, Storm Eunice hit Europe. Strong winds tore down street structures on cars and felled trees. Unfortunately, there were casualties. Many people were injured in accidents triggered by the storm. Millions of households and enterprises were left without electricity. Road, rail, ferry, and air service were disrupted. In some parts of Wales and England, including London, the highest red level of danger was declared. On the Isle of Wight, in the English Channel, the strongest wind gust in the history of Great Britain was registered. It was 196 kilometers per hour. Roads and houses were flooded in the coastal areas of the country because of the huge waves. In the Netherlands, the bad weather damaged infrastructure in Amsterdam and The Hague. Because of severe damage of a number of residential buildings, it was necessary to evacuate people. In Germany, coastal flooding, fallen trees, flying debris, and damaged houses were also reported. In the Russian Federation, Kaliningrad was hit by Eunice. The storm fell over 80 trees on sidewalks and roadways. Quays and dozens of streets in the city were flooded. Cyclone Eunice also affected Ireland, Belgium, France, Denmark, Lithuania, and Poland. On February 21st, the third storm of the week, named Franklin, passed through Great Britain. Residents were left without electricity and water supply. Streets of many cities literally turned into rivers. Road and rail traffic was disrupted. People were evacuated.
Devastating fires, merciless and catastrophic floods, unprecedented frosts, synchronized storms. The climate danger is increases with each passing day. Without understanding the nature of this danger, we can never properly prepare for it. An interdisciplinary study of the effects of astronomical cyclicity on the planet is more important now than ever.
The solid ground beneath our feet is beginning to crumble, even where we hoped we could be safe. If it is still not obvious that the problem is in magma, very soon everyone will be convinced of it. But what is happening now? National governments are afraid to tell the truth because they fear panic. One can understand them because they have nothing to offer people. Because then the question will arise, how are governments preparing for the coming events? Meanwhile, governments are raising money to fight against CO2. How's that? And scientists echo this lie and engage in some nonsense with this notorious carbon dioxide, just to make a little more money for the last time. Because of such collaborationists, we are totally unaware. Meanwhile, the inevitable is getting closer and we have no way to counteract it.
You to take a moment to imagine what would it be like if you were affected by a major disaster, natural or climate related? What if you were affected by a major forest fire? Would you be prepared? If all of a sudden within a week or two you had to get ready for a catastrophic typhoon that was headed directly towards your country? Or a major flood. Can you imagine how devastated you would be if you lost everything that you owned? If you watched the people around you, the people that you love, the people you love the most, struggle and suffer or even die? And there's nothing that you could do to help them because you didn't have the aid, the resources, or even the training to help. Can you visualize what it would be if people in your community were desperately searching through debris, looking for resources such as food, water, tools, or even clothes to wear? I've been in those situations and I've seen people struggling, and it's horrible. It's a nightmare. What if you had to make some sort of makeshift shelter out of debris just to get out of the rain and the weather, out of the elements, and you had to wait for weeks for humanitarian aid? That is not the society we want to live. That's not how we want things to be. That's not the future that we want to create.
On one side, the planet is burning. The other is engulfed in water. The earthquakes are shaking our houses. Oxygen is depleting. The volcanoes are erupting. Yet, we have nowhere to run. We are separated. Each of us is trying to save their own life because there is no more food or water left. Riots are starting to happen. Imagine the destruction, the chaos, and the horror of it all. We are left alone in a crumbling world to die. The worst part is this is not a movie. It is real life. The truth is, each person living on the planet today decides the fate of the whole humanity. There is not going to be one hero to save us all. We all must become heroes ourselves.
I think that from a cosmic point of view, apparently it had to get this bad for a critical mass of humanity to wake up and say, no more of this. We're taking back our power, we're unleashing our creativity, and we're going to thrive. And I believe we will.
We want to live. And we want our grandchildren and great-grandchildren to be able to live and the human race to continue to exist on Earth. We want to live in the creative society, to live in dignity, to live humanly.
In the creative society, the main reference point in all spheres of life is the human being. Therefore, the development of science, technology, and industries is aimed at the safe and comfortable life of each person, as well as the development of all society. In order for us to have this chance to live in the creative society, we all need to actively inform all people about the real causes of climate change.
Therefore, one shouldn't be indifferent to one's neighbors either.
Certainly.
One cannot be in the position, my house is at the edge, as they also say.
Oh no, again, my house is at the edge. It's none of my business. Just look at how consciousness alters everything, how the system twists everything. What did my house is at the edge mean in the past? In the past, settlements were built by the roads, and those who were stronger, braver, and took responsibility for the whole settlement actually built their houses at the edge. Those were fighters and warriors who were the first to defend a village. So, when they said, my house is at the edge, they were treated with respect. Or people said, this man's house is at the edge. It's the same as a hero.
Oh, Igor Mikhailovich, this is so interesting. And there is awareness that in this period of time, looking at what is happening in the world, looking at how climate strikes each of us,
Yes.
from the sides we don't know, it turns out that each of us has a position, my house is at the edge, because all of us are at the edge of a precipice.
There should be a position of, my house is at the edge. You see, we are all vulnerable to a strike by the climate, and that trouble which is already taking place. Yet, there should be such a mindset that our houses are at the edge, and we should take responsibility, not only for our future, but also for the future of our neighbors, friends, acquaintances, and even strangers. Why? Because then, and only then, can we change something. When we stop being indifferent to ourselves, to our near and dear people, to humanity, and stop being indifferent to our planet, it is also alive and defends itself. Just look, we started talking about the planet. We were just talking about the planet's immunity. And you know, recently I heard they're going to make devices that will purify our air, remove, CO2 from our atmosphere. Can you imagine what it is? Friends, if we approach this issue in the right way, at the time when our planet is strenuously producing CO2, in order to create this bumper, this shield, we will remove it. That is, we will artificially reduce the immunity so that the patient would die sooner. Is that what we do? And that's the truth of life. You know, we have a lot of truths like this. Yet we want to live, don't we? We are people. We want to live.
Yes.
So here's the paradox. In order to really live, we should eliminate stupidity. And we should start with ourselves.
Each of us is responsible for the world we live in and the future we will have. Only by joining forces we can build a creative society. You can learn more about the Creative Society at creativesociety.com. Thank you for being with us today, and see you soon on Creative Society TV.